Okay, now we're recording. This is Wrong Speed Record Chat number 9. We've got Mr. Jimmy Martin here.
Hello.
Hello, Jimmy. How's it going?
How you doing, Joe? Not so shabby.
Yeah. So we have the sunset over Kingsland Road, is it?
It is Kingsland Road. Yeah, this is Kingsland Road. You can see over here. I don't think you get a better view of, probably not really. But yeah, there you go. That's Kingsland Road.
Jimmy plays in the rock band Teeth of the Sea, and he also plays in the rock band Angel Witch. And I'm sure we'll cover those two things at some point in the next 3 or 4 minutes. So he also works in Flashback Records. So chances are he's posted you a record over the last 12 months rather than seen you in the shop. How's the shop been?
It's been good, yeah. I mean, it's been amazing how consistent it's been, actually, in terms of how busy we've been over the last year. I mean, it went crazy when we first closed, when the world kind of ground to a halt in sort of March 2020. And, you know, we're kind of, when the strange 28 days later thing where the shop was boarded up, you know, and it was kind of nobody on the streets, but we're still getting loads and loads of orders for records. Because I guess people were sort of stuck indoors, staring at their racks, going, oh, I haven't got this, and with a bit of extra cash and stuff as well. So it's kind of kept the business going, really, over the, you know. But it's been, you know, I think 2021's been a little bit more bleak, really, possibly. I mean, we've still been selling loads of records, but it's just the sort of the grinding monotony of being in this windowless basement. Yeah. But what better than to be surrounded by a load of vinyl, you know, if that's your job. I could be a lot worse. I think I've got off quite lucky, really.
It could be a lot worse. Yeah. It was a long winter. To be honest, it felt like today, and today is the 30th of March when this video goes up. I'm not sure, but today is the 30th. And it felt like actual summer today. It felt like...
Yeah, it's amazing. It was... Yeah. I mean, I was still in a windowless basement pulling records for people, admittedly. But it was, you know, and the times when I stepped out of there, it was insane. It was just such a, like, such a relief. It's just kind of like, you know, you just... Oh, you know, it's kind of been like that. So.
I felt at work, it felt like a weight had lifted for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
That maybe there was a slight glimpse of optimism. Mate, it's going to get dashed, I know, against the rocks like everything else.
I think so. You know, just people getting a bit of vitamin D and being a bit more cheerful, and you know, there's definitely springs in the air.
Yeah,
which is nice,
positive. And any Teeth of the Sea plans? How's that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I'm at liberty to divulge, but we're working on quite a few things at the minute. We're back rehearsing again, which we're legally allowed to do at the moment, which seems a bit strange, but we have been doing that. We've been rehearsing and coming up with new material. We've got quite a bit of stuff stockpiled, really. From like we did this thing in 2019 where we at the Science Museum called Apollo's Moonshot, where we were soundtracking, like, about 2 hours worth of new material to soundtrack these footage to coincide with the anniversary of the moon landings. So we've got a whole load of material from that. We've got a whole load of stuff that we did like last summer when we were allowed to rehearse back then. And we're just, you know, we've got all sorts of, I don't really want to kind of do any spoilers on what we've got planned for the next few months, but we're pretty busy at the minute. And
I'm hoping we get to talk about soundtracks at some point this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was listening to like the band this evening, like in this afternoon, and what really struck me about Teeth of the Sea, like virtually all the way through, but certainly some elements, it really is. It really reminds me of like in a really good way.
Yeah. I mean that's quite a compliment, really, obviously, because we love that soundtrack, and you know, that kind of bravado and that kind of chutzpah is totally what we're going for, you know.
This is an
and that look as well, and that's actually our mood board for how we want to look. I mean, we haven't quite got there yet, unfortunately, but you know, one day.
But yeah, there you go.
That was like our modus operandi. I was the world's least menacing street gang. I think that's what we're trying to achieve.
But yeah, it's
no, the Warrior soundtrack's great. I mean, I've got my records here. I've got a separate bit for just soundtracks, and it's like I've been obsessed with soundtracks since I was a kid. I remember when I was like 11, 12 years old, in the first year of secondary school, I did my school music project even then on soundtracks, and you know, Ennio Morricone, I think, featured in that because I loved all spaghetti western things. I was kind of brought up on them, and obviously that's passed all the way through to Teeth of the Sea, because you can hear that in Teeth of the Sea's music, albeit, you know. And then like, I mean, I was into stuff that's, you know, like I think one of the other people you had on, was it Roos, who was talking about the Flash Gordon soundtrack, which I've also got up here, which obviously is, I've even got the VHS to Flash Gordon set here as well, just for good measure. And I mean, it's mad, I've actually got a tattoo of this thing here on the back of the VHS video. So that left a big impression on me. And Mark Knopfler's Local Hero soundtrack when I was 11, I was a big fan of that as well. I mean, I don't have that up here actually, if I'm honest, but it's
no, that was
a big deal for me. So I was big into soundtracks back then, and it's pretty much followed me all the way through. I've always been, and a lot of the influences you hear in Tooth of the Sea are stuff like Angelo Badalamenti's a big one, did the Twin Peaks soundtracks and all the David Lynch stuff. I'm always ripping him off, particularly that kind of guitar sound. Morricone's always been a big one, and there's a whole load of other stuff.
Yeah, well, you can really hear.
So yeah,
massively.
Yeah, well, that's nice to know,
Yeah, like I sort of, especially this. It just, I don't know why. I mean, I love this film. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's a great film. It's the swagger, isn't it? It's a bit of swagger. We always try and bring a bit of swagger to the proceedings if we can.
Yeah. So Colossus played with Teeth of the Sea. We did a mini European tour together, and this is probably 2015 or 2016-ish.
It was 15, I think. I remember we did 3 shows. I think it was sort of in the Benelux. So it was like, what was it? Was it Eindhoven Cyclab? And then there was like one in Liège and one in Magazine 4, I think.
Yeah. And we played the Liège one. Really sticks in my mind because it was it felt like a adult education center or something. It was, I can't. Can you remember the front room of it? It was like just like,
yeah, it was
lighting.
It was pretty mad. It was like, I mean, it's towards the end of that night. I think the person who was running the event was DJing, wasn't she? I think, and it was like we were like being at a youth club basically. It was kind of vibes you'd get when you were going to a disco at the age of 11 or 12 with like really violent strip lighting, and everybody. I mean, we'd losing our marbles. Obviously, we'd taken a few drinks by that point, and we were having a good time. But dancing. I can't even remember what we were dancing to, but it was quite an enthusiastic evening. But it had that feel of some sort of improvised party for teenagers the whole way through, Yeah. But it was a great night.
Yeah, absolutely reliving our youth. But what I remember is, and this is what you were saying about the whole swagger thing, is that unless I'm imagining this, I'm pretty sure you did the guitar throw around the body thing at the little back of this venue in front of what must have been like 50. I'm saying 50 people. Like it was a good,
but like that, yeah, probably. No, yeah, I did used to have a bit. I used to do that just as a bit of a piss take on one of our tunes because I had a bit where I wasn't really playing, so I used to kind of do that, fling the guitar, which is something I have to admit I practiced when I was like a teenage shred guitar fan. I used to practice that, and I took a few chunks out of my parents' furniture when I was like 14 and 15 years old, trying to do the whole kind of Steve Vai and Yngwie Malmsteen were the 2 biggest exponents of that. You get like Yannick Gers, who's an Iron Maiden now, is a big fan of it, and he tends to do that to the exclusion of actually playing his guitar at certain points in the set.
They got 3 guitarists, so one can chuck things around.
Yannick's role in Iron Maiden is as much interpretive dance as it is actually guitar playing at this stage. I think he's barely in the mix for quite a lot of the set. Bless him. He's obviously a very important part of the band in terms of the spirit of the band and the identity, but he's a bit of a Bears figure, really, to be honest.
Because
so like.
They could have got when what is it? Unless I'm mistaken, and you're definitely the expert on this. When Adrian Smith came back, they could have got rid of Yannick, right?
Yeah, well, apparently, I mean, so I've heard on the grapevine. Adrian wouldn't have it. He said, "If I'm coming back, then Yannick's got to stay. I'm not coming back unless we're going to have 3 guitarists because I don't want to get rid of Yannick. I don't want to kick him out." Yeah. I don't exactly know what happened, but that's apparently what the story was.
Yeah, and I'm guessing Bruce didn't do that for Blaze.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen Halloween are back together now with kind of the original lineup, but it's actually this kind of sort of composite monstrosity where they've got 2 singers and 3 guitar players, and it's like an 8 or 9 piece or something like that. So the 2 singers like sing some of the songs each, and then the duet on a couple of other ones and stuff like that. So they've kind of have done that actually, but I think by 1999 it was pretty obvious that Blaze kind of had to go, unfortunately, and he just couldn't really he didn't have those skills to pay the bills, unfortunately. And I mean, it was unfortunate for Blaze that he happened to inherit that role of maiden singer at the absolute worst point for traditional metal and traditional metal's history, when it was its least fashionable and least marketable. And also those are big shoes to fill. Bruce Dickinson's, he's whatever you think about that bloke, he's got an incredible set of pipes. And Blaze was always like a Dave Lee Roth style vocalist who was all kind of attitude and and enthusiasm over actual ability, and he just couldn't do it. It just wasn't going to happen. If you have a look on YouTube and see Blaze trying to do the Evil That Men Do, it's just that just says everything. Unfortunately, it's kind of not a pretty sight.
No, I don't want to look. I'm not going to look. Anyhow, I don't want to get massively caught up in
Iron Maiden chat.
Although I do enjoy it, and I do have a couple of records down here in case we flip back that one.
You do, yeah. Well, you were at Donington '88, which I wasn't, so you're one up on me there. So
that's the only time I saw him. So
yeah.
Okay. Let's tuck into a couple of records and see where we go.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so can we have a record from your favourite record shop, please?
Okay, I mean, I've spent most of my adult life pretty much working in record shops, to be honest. It's kind of dominated my sort of life. So I kind of couldn't really just do one for this, because some of my favourite record stores I've actually worked in. But the one that really sprung to mind was, there was a place in Newcastle when I was growing up that was like the archetypal dingy secondhand, like alternative record shop, where it was kind of like, your feet stuck to the floor and you went in there, the staff really obnoxious and pissy the whole time. The music was really loud and really obnoxious, and it was like nothing I'd heard before. It was, I don't know what it was now, but to the ears of a 13 or 14-year-old, it just sounded like total cacophony. And there was just this real front and attitude that the staff had, that you wouldn't want to talk to them because they were too, they were too intimidating. But I love Volume Records. That was like the archetype of the sort of classic underground secondhand shop. And I was in there at one point in the early 90s and finding this record here, which is a record by Acid Rain called Obnoxious, which basically became a bit of a running joke at this point, really just because of the sleeve, because that, to my mind, is probably the worst sleeve of any record I own. I mean, I could be debatable, but there's something about it. It's just, it doesn't succeed on any level. I know it's supposed to live up to the name of the album, but I think it's just, they just completely kiboshed their career just with that one sleeve. So anyway, I saw this record in the bargain bin once, and it was like £1.99 or something like that. And I took it up to the counter, and the obnoxious guy behind the counter just went, "Just have that, mate. Just take it out of here." So I ended up getting this record for free, and I've still got it. It's not a very good record. I actually listened to it again before we did this, just to see if I'd been missing out over the years. And it's just that kind of really laboured kind of bad tech thrash that you got when thrash was starting to run out of steam in about 1990.
I've got I do have Moshkinstein, which is a that's like a 6-track EP they did, maybe their first sort of release, right?
Yeah, it's probably the best one, because that's like Gaz Jennings, who was later in Cathedral, was in the band at that point, and he was like, he's a bit of a kind of riff machine, and always was, and he like wrote a lot of the early material, and obviously he's written some amazing riffs. He wrote some great riffs for Cathedral, but he ducked out the door pretty early, so he's only really on Moshkin. So I think he's on the Fear as well, but not as much. And but he was long gone by the time that they did this, and it's kind of like, it's just really representative of that period when thrash metal was starting to get a bit laboured and boring. But I've still got it for some reason. I think it's just because that sleeve's so bad, I felt like I couldn't get rid of it.
It is an atrocity.
But anyway, so that's from Volume Records. There are other record shops I could cite as well. I mean, like the two I've spent most of my life working in, obviously. So like I can't remember. I think I had one from HMV. Obviously, there's loads I've bought from HMV over the years. But there's one from, I remember when I first moved to London, the first time I ever went to Flashback, I was kind of like, all excited about the fact that I was in London finally and stuff. And I remember seeing this record here, this Danzig album, which at that point was like, $5.99 or something like that, because it was 2000. And actually I didn't buy it. And I remember a few nights later, I actually had a dream about it where somebody else had bought it. So I had to go back and buy it because I was so worried I was going to miss out on this Danzig record. So that was like the first record I ever bought in Flashback, I think, which has now ended up being the place I've worked for the last 5 years.
That's a hard record to get hold of. I've only got.
Apparently it is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's got this amazing, you've got this amazing foldout with a picture of the band looking mean here, which is, I don't know. Yeah, you don't see reissues of this very often. I think it's the Deaf American one. Yeah, and I mean, I mean, a lot of my record collection is. I never really stopped buying vinyl during the CD age, and there was a long period from like in the early noughties when there's loads of records that, without wanting to get bogged down in the prices of things, I was picking stuff up for like 5-6 quid that now worth 70-80 quid, all the time. So that was a classic example of that, really.
Yeah, I was the same. So I have it in my head that, like, perhaps yourself and me and a bunch of people I know and whatever, we were still backing a horse fit for glue through that era where it was like, this is a dead format. What the hell are you doing? And even like the first Oasis album was only sort of quite wasn't pressed massively, and all this sort of business. And even those records are worth money now. Like,
No, I mean, I see that every day at work. 90s stuff's worth crazy amounts of money. It's like even like not particularly like well-regarded 90s stuff, goes for crazy amounts of money. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I didn't buy everything on vinyl in the 90s, but it was just, I never remember thinking at any point, oh, I'm gonna have to stop buying vinyl now. It was always like something that I kept, and it was great in those days. You could just go and buy virtually anything for 4 or 5 quid. So a lot of my collections from that sort of era, really.
Yeah. They were charging 12 quid for a CD and sort of 6 or 7 quid for the record, and the record was
that was it. I mean, it's like, you could probably get a copy of the White Album that's worth like 100 quid now, you could get for like 6 quid, whereas if you bought the White Album on CD it would have been 23.99 or something like that. Beatles records used to be 17 quid on CD and people just bought them. Back in those days I was working in HMV, and I used to, when I first started working at HMV, I was like, I'll try and chat to some of the punters about the records they're buying, because this is like, this is the fun part of the job. And you'd get these middle-aged men would troop up to the counter with their sort of King Crimson CDs and stuff like that. And I'd sort of try and have a chat with them about it. And it was like really bizarre because they didn't really like the fourth wall being broken. They didn't really want to talk to the staff. You'd sort of like, oh yeah, really good album that. And they'd sort of go, they'd just like clockwork. They'd say one of two things. They would say, yep, used to have it on vinyl, just going through replacing the collection. Like they'd say that, and then they'd say, or they'd say something like, yeah, Guildford Civic Hall, 1971. Remember seeing them there? That was the good. They were the good moments when you could chat to them about Guildford Civic Hall or whatever, But it's just, it's the biggest trick the music industry's ever played, is making these guys buy the same records 3 times essentially. They bought In the Court of the Crimson King on vinyl in the early 70s, then they bought it on CD in the 90s, and then they bought it on vinyl again with a Stephen Wilson remaster like a couple of years ago, Yeah. So, and probably the box set as well. So, yeah, you have it.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've got a few records where I've got them on CD and vinyl. Often I've done.
No, I've got loads. I mean, I'm not one to talk. There's quite a lot. I've got the big 3 of, to be honest. Yeah. I think Napalm Death Scum, for example, I've got on tape, CD and vinyl up there, and stuff like that, Yeah. We shouldn't get onto multiple copies of stuff because I've got quite a few. There's quite a few records I've got multiple copies of up there, for one reason or another.
Oh dear. Hit me with a record with memories.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest one of all of these, actually, out of the list you gave us. It's probably the hardest one to do because obviously they've all got memories. And I mean, I'm not like as obsessive as some people. I remember like every other music I read, like High Fidelities. There's a bit in that book where he's talking about how he can remember exactly where he bought every single record and which order he bought them in. And that's really not the case. I mean, I tend to look at this and I'll be like, I can't remember ever buying this. How is this even here? Or like, other stuff will just vanish from my collection as well. Like there was I definitely used to have Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie on vinyl because I played that to death, but it's not there anymore. So I don't know what happened. Either I was DJing at a party or something. I guess I maybe had a slightly more chaotic lifestyle in my 20s. So I probably was DJing at a party or somewhere and I left it somewhere. But one record I did single out, which has got memories, if I can dig it out of this unruly pile down here, is... it's not terribly well organized. Yeah, see, I thought I was actually quite well prepared for this, but it's clearly not the case at all. Anyway, it's Kate Bush, Hounds of Love, which I've got down here somewhere, which was like a record which I didn't even have on vinyl to start with. It was like, I think I bought it off my cousin, and it was quite a young age as well. It was when I was like 11 years old. And it was like one of these records I genuinely thought was quite scary when I first got it, particularly that Ninth Wave, the second side. Like, I remember some of that, I was almost kind of quite spooked to listen to, because there was like the atmospherics on it and the sort of like the general kind of malevolent tone to quite a lot of it, and the dreamlike quality of it I found quite eerie and quite haunting. I mean, I think I'd been kind of lured in there initially by the sort of singles, because like Running Up That Hill was quite a ubiquitous tune that was all over the place at that point. You know, it was on a lot of TV shows and stuff like that, and it had been a hit single. And that album, obviously, the side one's all the hits. Like, it's got like The Big Sky and Cloud Busting, which is still an amazing pop tune. You know, like probably one of the great melds of sort of pop music in the avant-garde I can think of. You know, sort of up there with those Superman and all that. And you know, but so that I kind of got lured in by that, and then the side two just absolutely ripped my head off. I couldn't even work out what I was listening to half the time. So that's definitely a record that made a really intense impression on me at quite a young age, when I was sort of 10 or 11 years old. And I mean, I did actually, and that was another record, which was, I mean, it's down here in this pile somewhere. But when I was putting this stuff together for this, I went to the collection to try and find it, and found I didn't have it, although I definitely did used to have it. So I actually bought another copy for Flashback as a result of this. So I've got you to thank for that. Yeah, so... No, it's had to be done. I've got it on CD as well, incidentally, so that's another one I've got on vinyl and on CD, so for better or for worse. But
do you get a discount in the shop?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do get cheap records. Basically, you get, like, you know, vinyl for cost, and you get a discount on the secondhand stuff as well. So it's pretty nice. I mean, it's you know, it's part of the reason. It's just like your wages just go straight back into the shop. It's kind of counterproductive in some ways, because you just get twice as many records, you know, if you get them cheap. So, but,
they've got you.
Yeah, of course. It's, you know, it's all a ruse. I mean, you know, I've been getting discounted records my whole life pretty much for that reason. Given that I've kind of sacrificed my entire working life to record shops and music retail, you know.
I did a phase just in distributors, or I worked in record distributors for about like 8 years or so, and I would like that for instance, like the soul jazz compilations that came out through that period. I've got like a right old stash of that sort of thing, and I'm very pleased to have picked them all up as well. Because
didn't you tell me that you were working for Southern at one point, weren't you, there, and you used to go through like huge stacks of what would now be quite sought after records, just having to destroy them and stuff like that? I think you might have talked about that in the book.
Yeah,
like probably like Laughing Hyenas records and shit like that, you know, and you were having to destroy them. I
bumped into Ben Corrigan, who do you know Ben? He's the
I don't think I do know Ben. No,
so he's the guitarist and singer in the band Hard Skin.
I know Hard Skin. Yeah, I used to have a Hard Skin record. I think I'm not sure if I've still got it, but I had Hard Nuts and Hard Cunts. Yeah.
He lives just around the corner from me here in Somerset. I bumped into him in the supermarket over the weekend.
Oh wow, okay.
And he used to work at Southern when I worked there, and we were reminiscing about this enormous like pile of records that was just thrown away for tax reasons. And it was Laughing Hyenas, The Digits, Crass, Ween. It's insane, and all of that stuff has been repressed since then.
Did that do your head in at the time, having to destroy that stuff?
Yes, but I took multiple copies of everything and gave them to everyone I knew. So everyone I know has like the Digits and Laughing Hyenas records that I picked up, and then they just got all took to the tip.
It's crazy, really. But I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that kind of thing. And I think anybody who's been in an independent band or like as an independent musician has been, you know, more than familiar with having boxes and boxes of their own records that they can't shift sitting around the place, and not really knowing whether to throw them in the canal or what, you know. Or so I found the Kate Bush record, by the way, just in case you're aware. Finally. This was another thing. I think if I could just mention this, it was the first music crush I think I ever really had at the age of 11 was Kate Bush, actually, largely because of this sleeve. So I think that probably had something to do with the impact it had on us, you know. But
it's good music. It's fine.
Well, it is good music anyway.
Hit me with a record you bought on tour.
So when we were away with Angel Witch, and we were playing somewhere called Festa Bikers, which is a biker fest in Italy. which is in sort of Bergamo, and that was Blaze Bailey was actually also on the bill for that. Funnily enough, bringing us back to Blaze Bailey.
Yikes.
There was Blaze Bailey. There was, I can't remember who else was on the bill. It was kind of a bit of a weird sort of ramshackle event. It was a lot of fun, but it was, Blaze Bailey was on the bill. There was a band called White Skull. I think they're an Italian band who I think have got a member called Tony Mad. I think his name's Tony Mad. I met Tony Mad. He wasn't really all that mad at all. But White Skull weren't really all that great. They've been going for like donkey's years. So they did one of these kind of slightly grandiose sets that kind of went on for ages, to celebrate their whole career, which nobody knew about. And it's the only gig I've ever done where there was actually pyro on stage as well. Nobody told us there was going to be pyro. Just somebody started letting it off midway through. I don't know if it was White Witch or an Angel Witch itself. Just a load of pyro started going off, and we just nearly bricked it. But anyway, we were at this Festa Bikers thing. It was a torrential rainstorm as well, so we almost didn't do the gig at all. But luckily, it just abated in time for us to play. But there was this guy with a stall there, and he had this amazing collection of records, like the kind of stuff that you just don't really see very often. And one of them was this record by Celtic Frost, it's Morbid Tales, which is totally like a, absolute gold dust kind of thing, really. It's on the Banzai label as well, which is this thing up here. It's a speed metal. I don't know if you know, Fenrich has got a tattoo of that, which is this like, it's like a Canadian label that did all the really great early stuff. Right. Like all your sort of things, like sort of Destruction. I think there might have even been a Metallica one on there. I'm not trying to remember, but there was like, Celtic Frost, Voivod, Destruction, all the like really early thrash stuff came out on this Canadian label called Banzai. So it's a Banzai copy of that. It's got the sort of this label here. It's like, so, and it was there, and it was kind of, I was totally skinned at the time, but I was just like, I have to have this record. So I think I ended up having to find some cash point in the middle of nowhere, just get some cash to pick up this Celtic Frost record, because it was just such a must-have.
Yeah.
So that was an example. But that's one of the big bonuses of going on tours. I'm sure the other people who've been on this would say, Frederick is the drummer in Angel, which is a total vinyl junkie as well. He's obsessed, probably even more than I am, to be honest. Like his Black Sabbath bit in his collections, like dwarfs mine. So he always insists on going to record shops wherever we go with Angel Witch, and I usually tag along with him, and we always buy a few bits and pieces wherever there's a record shop, and it's totally one of the bonuses.
I love it. It's one of my. It's not my favorite thing of doing it, but it's right up there.
It's definitely a big factor. And there's another one actually. I did think of another one as well, which is this Agua Turbia record, which I picked up when we were in Chile with Angel Witch, because it's actually a Chilean band. They were kind of like a psych band from the late 60s. And so it was just, I was just kind of like, well, if we're going to go all the way to Chile, I want to kind of bring back some sort of souvenir. So, and there was just this record shop. Yeah. So what am I not going to find anywhere else? I could at least get a Chilean band,
Like, what is it? What was it? I didn't know what it was.
Agua Turbia Volumen 2. It's like a sort of heavy psych record from the late 60s.
Right.
So it's great stuff. I mean, I was a fan of it anyway, I'm trying to think what to compare it to, really. Sort of like, maybe a bit like sort of Jefferson Airplane, but a bit more sort of wigged out kind of thing, maybe. And a bit more Zeppelin-esque, something like that. But but anyway, so that was the thing I bought from this strange shop in a kind of shopping mall in Santiago in Chile.
It's awesome. I love that sort of stuff. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. For us, it's either we go via record shops to go to different towns. So we'll actually go out our way to stop somewhere. Or we pray that certain people turn up with boxes of records to buy. I mean,
that's always nice as well, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is if the other band is good. If you're in France and you play with a French band and you actually think, shit, they're actually, and then you pick up their record. That's nice. It's a nice sort of way of.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, you come across a load of bands that you wouldn't otherwise really, stumble across, I think, doing that as well. And it's one of the great things about being on tour is just, meeting those kind of people and playing with those kind of groups,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you're seeing like two totally different worlds. So you've got like
definitely.
Angel Witch and Teeth of the Sea are, they are not like, they're different.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's it is very different. I mean, but it's all stuff. I'm very privileged position, really, of having be able to do both of those at once, really, because it's all stuff I'm into, and I get to kind of like indulge all my kind of artistic wobblers, really. I'm kind of a metalhead by nature. Obviously, it's fairly obvious, it's like my first love and it'll be my last, but at the same time of being into all this other stuff as well, and I get to indulge both of those things at once.
Yeah,
so it's kind of great.
Here's another thing that we talked about recently, and it just got reissued on vinyl, and it's another band that I think, or another not band, person that has influenced Teeth of the Sea.
Oh yeah,
and it's this here.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got that one up there as well. That was when it was Mike from Teeth of the Sea turned me onto that one, as I remember. Because we've there's actually a thing, there's like a reference to it on the back of one of our records. I think might have mentioned that to you, where it says all human is error. That's taken from something on the sleeve of that. And it's an amazing record. It's really hard to classify. It was really sort of out in a limb kind of electronic record. One of those amazing things that came from France in the late 70s and stuff. And like French prog's always been a big thing for us as well. Like, we're always big advocates for particularly Richard Pinhouse, who's now become somebody who's actually kind of a friend of ours, really. Like, he came to our show when we were on tour in France, because I was a big fan of all the Helden stuff from the 70s. I've got like a big stack of Helden records over there. And there's a whole load of other amazing French stuff I got turned on to in the sort of late noughties, really, through a couple of friends of mine.
Yeah, it was.
And I bet it's Anya was kind of part of that cachet, really.
Yeah, it was Paul from Colossus. He told me about this 10 years ago, say, and I picked the CD up. I think the vinyl reissue, it comes with a really nice insert as well with the guy from Wallfires has written.
Yeah, John Olsen's on there, isn't he? Yeah, talking about it and stuff. I need to get that reissue. I mean, it's another record I'm going to have more than one copy of, because I've got an original up there, but I'll probably need the reissue as well. Yeah. It
comes with a whole bunch of extra stuff, and it's excellent. I don't really have it as prog myself. I've got it. It's like experimental.
No.
Electronic or something.
I think it's I find it sort of unclassifiable, really. I think some of it kind of sounds quite Eno-esque, in places, like songwriting-wise. Some of it's kind of like more like that sort of French experimental electronic thing that was more like, because a lot of what Richard Penhouse's stuff wasn't really prog. Some of it's kind of a bit like that Naughty King Crimson vibe to it, but a lot of it's more just like really like strange experimental electronic music, really. So that's kind of like, and that's kind of a bit more what's Bernard Zanier. He invented the laser harp. I don't know if we talked about this. He's the laser harp that was later used by Jean-Michel Jarre and all these big gigs across like the Houston skyline and all that kind of thing. And I think there was some kind of controversy over Jean-Michel Jarre basically running away with his idea, I think. Mike from Teeth of the Sea and I went to a big talk that Bernard Zanier did with the guy David Vorhaus, the guy who did the White Noise record. I don't know if you know that White Noise album.
No, I tell you what, Tom showed it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, if it's the one. Yeah. Tom showed it as his bargain buy or something, or his tour buy. Yeah.
But I mean, David Vorhaus is, we're diplomatic, but he's maybe a little bit shot away, and possibly wasn't all that. Wasn't really all that good value in that chat, But we also, all the Teeth of the Sea lads went to one of the AGPs once and saw a White Noise performance in about 2008 that was absolutely shocking. Like, there was really just like, you should not have resurrected this project at this point. It sounded like some sort of terrible kind of bloke trying to rip off the Orb in the early 90s kind of thing. But Bernard Zanier was great in this. He was extremely dry and entertaining, and he talked about the whole saga about Jean-Michel Jarre nicking his ideas and stuff like that, and he's an interesting geezer.
Yeah, well, this is a record.
Still underappreciated. Yeah.
We recommend getting this, and also it does look a little bit like a Spinal Tap sleeve.
Yeah, kind of iron glove. The iron glove is very Spinal Tap.
Around a sort of fallacy. Yeah. But yeah, anyhow, so yeah, these are. I'm just picking out things that I think have influenced your band.
Well, I'm very flattered by both those comparisons so far. I'm glad you didn't pick up a sort of like Belle Sebastian record or something like that, or
No. I might have one or two more, but no. This is a ridiculous one, I know, for anyone who buys a lot of records, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Really, it just provokes a chat. So, record that people wouldn't think that you'd dig.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to say what people would think I'd dig, but I did think of a couple of ones that are weird ones. There's one there's a great record which I think I picked up, if not from my parents, then definitely from my grandparents. Actually, it was kind of like this record by Peggy Lee and George Shearing, which is like called Beauty and the Beat, which is like, I don't know exactly what you'd call it. I guess it's like jazz, like sort of like swing and jazz, sort of cocktail jazz almost. And there's a bit of a kind of Afro-Cuban element to it as well. There's this guy, Armando Peraza, who arranges a lot of the stuff for sort of, and a lot of the tunes on it are written by Cole Porter. So it's obviously some quality songwriting on here. And Peggy Lee, obviously, as we know, has just got the most like, it's just got a voice like the Cadbury's bunny. You know, it's just like a voice you could listen to like all day, basically.
Right.
And she's an absolutely top form on this. It's another one of these live albums that wasn't actually live at all. It's basically like a piped in studio audience. So it's one thing it's got in common with Slayer's Live Undead, I think. But it's an amazing record. I've actually got 2 copies of this I discovered again when I was preparing for this. If anybody actually wants a copy of this record, you just want to PayPal me a couple of quid, I'll send you it because you need this record in your life. It's a classic example of the kind of record that you can find in a bargain bin for like a quid and it'll change your life. It's not worth anything, this record. You know, and
when was it released?
It was phenomenal. When 1959 it's from. I mean, I think a lot of people know Peggy Lee obviously because she did Fever, which loads of people have covered, everybody from Madonna to the Cramps and whatever. And she did Is That All There Is, which obviously PJ Harvey did, and it's been on a million movies and stuff like that. But she's just like, she's one of my favorite singers, like straight up. I mean, Peggy Lee, you just can't. I developed a bit of a passion for this kind of music when I was in my early 20s, and I think, to be fair, that was the thing people were most confused by. I'd go up to the counter at HMV, I'd be buying like a Julie London CD and a Sepultura album or something like that. And some people would think I was buying a present for my gran or something, but I did just really like Julie London. And what started out as being a kind of thing I'd put on like mixtapes as a bit of almost like a bit of light relief or as a bit of variety, actually ended up being something I was quite into.
Right.
And
so I've actually got quite a few. That's from your grandparents. That's from your grandparents.
Well, I mean, I think my mum's family had it, and I don't know whether it was my mum's or my grandma's record, but my mum was who introduced me to that record in the first place, I think. And then I just ended up loving it. There's another one I thought of as well, which is, it's actually where the John Peel thing came from, when you said that you had the John Peel book out before.
Oh yeah, this one here. We were talking about this before we came on to air, and Jimmy had it sitting right
now.
Yeah, what you call it?
Yeah, rather bizarrely, we were both looking at the same John Peel book, because there's a record I've got down here somewhere by Harry Lauder, which I actually discovered through John Peel. That was the thing. It was I don't know if you remember, he was doing this thing called the Peelanium in like 1990. He did this thing where he said he was going to play 4 tracks from every single year throughout the 20th century. And it lists all the Peelanium tunes in there in that book. Here it is. So this is the very best of Harry Lauder. So it's all like Roaming in the Gloaming, Have Something in the Bottle for the Morning, The Saftest o' the Family. It's all like, he was like a sort of boisterous Scottish musical entertainer. And the songs in it are really strange. They're like, he always breaks into some sort of comedy routine halfway through the track. And then he's like bellowing with laughter at his own jokes, and then it kicks in again. But I remember listening to Peel at one point in the late 90s, and he was doing the Peelanium. I think it was on 1913, I've discovered from reading there. And he played It's Nice to Get Up in the Morning, but It's Nicer to Stay in Bed, which is a track by Harry Lauder. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I saw this again for a quid, and I was just like, oh, I've got to have that. And I've still got it. And I've discovered this is quite a good way to clear the venue if you're DJing and you need to get people out at the end of the night. If you put this Harry Lauder record on, there's some kind of repellent quality to it that people just know the evening's over and they've got to get out.
And it's from 1913.
The track that he played was from 1913. I mean, Peel played stuff right from 1900 onwards. So, like, it's like the titles of if I could find the book, the titles of the tracks from the early days were crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, It was really interesting thing, really. It's what a mad thing he did, because it was really just showing you how music had evolved throughout the whole of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So it was all things like, Our Lodge is Such a Nice Young Man. There's a track called that he played from 1901 by the Parlophone Quartet. It was all songs with titles like that, So it was, that was I discovered that. Yeah, that's another record that maybe people wouldn't think I'd be into Harry Lauder, but that was all John Peel's fault, like everything else.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, that is I would not expect you to dig Harry Lauder. I don't know Harry Lauder, so.
Yeah, I mean the records are crazy. The records that are that old, they sound so strange. They're so hyper compressed, and so like they sound like they're playing in the middle distance.
Yeah.
And the orchestra sounds like it's obviously all so compressed into one wax cylinder. I don't know how they even recorded things in 1913.
That's what it's like. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about that, because I've got like a Robert Johnson record. Everyone's got one or whatever, and it's from when would it be, like 20s or 30s or whenever Robert Johnson was doing his thing, and the picture on the front it's a cartoon pit, like a drawing rather than a
Yeah,
photo. But it is him playing in one room, and it's just been cut straight to vinyl in the other room, essentially.
Yeah. Well, it's like in, I don't know, in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, it's like the fantasy version of that, isn't it? I suppose. Like it's like that's what yeah. So.
Oh, but would that be that? I guess just cut straight to some form of cylinder that make it.
I'd be very curious to find out. I honestly couldn't tell you, but I mean, it's yeah, like it sounds like it's playing somewhere in the sort of middle distance in another room. Obviously, but there's and Harry's performance, I'm sure, had to be 3 times as boisterous and over the top as it actually was, just to convey its presence on that record. Hence the fact that he's bellowing with laughter at his own jokes on this tune. It's a really surreal thing. I guess it's the same. You get the same kind of strange vibe you get that the Caretakers kind of like trying to sum up on all his strange records.
Yeah, like Hauntology. From
the haunt. I mean, without love, though, I am to bring hauntology into this. I guess there is an aspect of why you enjoy this record. It is to do with that sort of strange, twisted version of the past.
Yeah. So the last subject I have is the 10-inch one, and I will just preface this by saying, so far, this is episode 9, and 2 people out of the 8 I've done so far absolutely love 10-inch records.
Oh, really?
And a couple don't, and the rest are kind of in the middle somewhere. It's quite. It's more divisive than any other format, vinyl-wise, right? The 10-inch.
It's mad, isn't it? It's surprisingly controversial. I mean, I can kind of understand the why people are, it gets lost in my collection and stuff like that. But I always try and be like, try not to get too bogged down in how you file things in your house and stuff as a reason to not like a format. I mean, I always remember people used to moan loads at HMV about digipacks, like they didn't like digipacks, they didn't fit in their CD racks and things like that.
The long-sleeved ones.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah. Everybody was very resentful of Ladies and Gentlemen by Spiritualized because they had to perch it on top of their CD racks in their house. And it's, I don't need to tell you that a lot of people's record collections is to do with some strange thing they've got in their head about endlessly filing and compartmentalizing things. So that completely fucks with the program for a lot of people. So I think 10-inch singles are a little bit like that. But I mean, there's loads of 10-inch singles that I actually thought of for this. I mean, I don't even really know. I even bought one again, just prompted by this, because I was looking around the shop this morning when I was at work. And there's loads of 10 inches at work, actually. The jazz section's full of 10 inches. It was a big thing in jazz in the 40s and 50s. So I'm the guy who used to have an Eartha Kitt 10 inch and stuff like that. Again, from the sort of more from the Peggy Lee and Julie London world, really. Yeah. And then like, there's quite a few that I found, actually. There's but there's one that's kind of got a bit more of a story behind it, actually, which is this, which is it's all Tekka. It's a Bass Cadet 10 inch. So it was like a series of 10 inches that they did, which are all the remixes of the Bass Cadet track. And this is a record that I was looking for like 20 plus years, basically. So it was like in about 95 and 96, when I was at college in Winchester, we used to sometimes like help out with doing some of the events, and we used to have to clear up after them. So obviously with a room full of students, it's just like endless amount of beer cans, and we used to have to bang some music on and clear up the room. And I remember one time we were doing that, and a friend of mine called Dave put on this record that had this amazing sort of clanging percussive sort of avant-garde thing going on, like rhythmic clanging percussive thing, which then turned into this really sort of beautiful Aphex Twin style melody. Yeah. And it was ringing out and resonating across this huge room that we were clearing up beer cans and echoing everywhere. And I thought it was the most amazing thing. And I always had that in the back of my head of what is this track? And I finally realized what it was. Yeah. And it was the Beaumont Talent mix of this Tekka Bass Cadet. But when I finally tracked it down, and I put it on, and it just didn't sound any good. And I was messaging Dave, and I was like, I finally got that track that you were playing. I've just realized what it was. And he was like, that sounds better when you play it on 33 instead of 45, though, don't you? I was like, oh, right. And it turned out it's a 45 RPM record, which sounds way better if you play it slower and you slow it down and play it 33. Hence, wrong speed. So it is. It is, yeah. It is one of those, and still to this day, I never played this on the right speed. Right. I've listened to it on the even on YouTube. I'll tend to slow it down and stuff if I happen to be in somewhere where I'm playing it. It's
one of my pet hates is buying a record that doesn't have a speed written on it.
Oh yeah.
Drives me mental. But that has got it written on it, but it's wrong.
I think, I don't think it was a mistake that we made. I think what is it? Does it say?
But wrong in your opinion.
Yeah, no, I think it does it say, or does it or does it not say 45 RPM? I don't think it does. So it might have been an honest mistake to start with, but it definitely sounds better at the wrong speed. I've got a friend who in 1989 bought Morbid Angels Altars of Madness, and he was like as excited as you would be to buy a record like that when you're like 14 years old, you know, which is supposed to be the most extreme thing that had ever come out. He got it at home, stuck it on, and he was just like, Jesus Christ, this is the most extreme thing I've ever heard in my life. You listen to the whole of the record and you'll guess what happened. You put it on at 45. So he was actually listening to the whole record at the wrong speed. Yeah, like, so it's already an incredibly intense and demented sounding record to sounded twice as intense and demented. And he honestly says he's never quite had the same buzz since from that album as he did the first time he played it at the wrong speed again.
Oh. Any other 10 inches? What other 10 inches you got then?
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, here's one that's I found Ligaments in different cop 10-inch on Flower Shop. That's a really good one.
You're the second person to do that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's for a good reason. I mean, there's a Heads one which is Legavan Satellite. It's on Man's Ruin. It's a nice orange vinyl thing. It's again one of the best Heads records. There's a La Bradford one which I've got down here somewhere, which I'll spend ages fishing out if I try and find it. That was that I just picked up today. You know, that was on. There's a Stereolab one as well down here somewhere. It was where's that? Here we are. Stereolab, first Stereolab 10-inch on Duophonic. That was like super electric. That's one of these. I mean, it's kind of one of these things where you can do stuff with a 10-inch that you can't do in other formats, because it's a bit like you can get like a perfect sort of 15-20 minute statement of intent for a new band, which often I think that's the better way of doing it than a debut album. You know, it leaves you wanting more, essentially, if you've got like 15-20 minutes worth of music. And that's exactly what this is. You know, this is one of the first things they ever did, if not the first. And it's absolutely perfect. It covers a whole load of different sides of their personality as a band, you know, and it absolutely nails it. So that's a classic example of a great 10-inch. I mean, I've also got, if you want something a bit less, you know, hipster cool, I've got Wild Heart's Sucker Punch 10-inch here as well, which I discovered, which I completely forgot I had, which has actually got a sort of 4 tracks and 33 on one side and some sort of etch disc that you probably can't see because of the lights.
Yeah, I can make it. Oh yeah, their logo, skull and crossbones.
Yeah, their logo and skull and crossbones logo on etch disc. Yeah, so I've got that one as well. So there's a whole load of them. You know, I'm a fan of 10-inches. I like them. You know?
Right, okay. Yeah. Well, because Barney, I think it was Barney, brought up the Wolves of Greece 10-inch.
Yeah, of course.
Which is one-sided, and it's like about
like Wild Hearts.
Yeah, yes. It's about 10 or 12 minutes long, and it's all like, it's, you know, it's like the amount of songs, but they've joined it all together and it makes sense. Like they could have probably put it on a 7-inch, but then they'd have had to split it over the two sides, but they wanted it all to be one lump. It's 10 minutes long, and so it does perfectly work for a 10-inch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot to be said for 10-inches, I think, you know, as a format. They've got an enduring life as well, because I don't know if you know, like the more recent kind of reggae scene, like the modern reggae scene, such as it is there's loads of 10-inches without, like modern UK reggae in the last like 5-10 years. It's the preferred format, weirdly.
Oh, really?
I don't really know why that is. Maybe it's considered a bit exotic or something like that as a format. I don't know.
Is that just like double plates, or like where they just press like 5 and they just do it as a 10-inch?
I'm not really sure how limited they are, but that seems to be like a big thing that's kind of come back into vogue a bit in sort of modern sort of like digidub and dancehall and whatnot.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean it's got legs. We've not seen the back of 10-inches yet.
No. Well, like I said, I only bring it up because it is a you know, it's just one of those. It's just a size that does cause issues. I bought, actually the last thing I bought from Flashback was a quadruple 10-inch.
What was that?
It was the Thundercat album.
Oh right, okay, yeah. No, I've seen that. I've seen that film. It's a nice little box thing, isn't it, that you get?
Yeah, and I love the album, but it's really, really irritating because it's 45 RPM and 6 minutes aside.
I mean, one of the harsh realities of life is that there are some records that you don't. There are some albums that you don't want on vinyl. You know, there's like you don't want E2, E4 by Emmanuel Goetsching on vinyl because you have to turn it over. You don't really want. I've got Tangerine Dream Zeit on vinyl. You kind of want that on CD because you could just leave it on and drift off. Yeah, Alien Redig. You don't really want an Alien Redig thing on vinyl because you just want to put it on and drift off for an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah. You know, it's kind of like some things are actually better on CD, even though I'm loath to admit it. But you know,
no, you're right. Well, Chris mentioned the Nex albums If you know that band.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'd imagine that's the case for them too. It works for some things, not for others. But I mean, vinyl's my favorite format by miles, clearly. But
yeah. So, you got any others you want to show?
Yeah, sure. I mean, oh god, to be honest, I've kind of pulled out too many really for this. So, one thing I was going to mention was how people keep their collections, because I don't know how you file your collection. Do you put it in like by genre, or do you do it alphabetically, or do you have any system at all?
The system is quite vague. It's not alphabetical. It's just I've lumped it in. It's kind of a bit not really much of an order. I quite like it because then I can I can get randomly surprised when I'm looking for something else. It's not.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people have got very idiosyncratic systems that only work for them, really, like where they know where everything is, but nobody else would ever be able to fathom it. I'm just going to have to let the Tooth of the Sea lads. I'm supposed to actually doing another Zoom with the Tooth of the Sea lads, but I don't want to cut this short, so I'm just going to let them know. But yeah, no, I keep all mine alphabetically. Basically, I just put everything sort of alphabetically. It's the only way I'm ever going to find anything, because whatever. But similarly, it's like, I don't know. I was looking at Hey Colossus. I've got a lot of Hey Colossus records, and I was like, where do they fit in this whole alphabetical world that I've set up here? And where they fit is between Kristen Hirsch and His Hero's Gone. Oh. So there you go. So I pulled those two records out. There you go. It's Kristen Hirsch, the Ghost EP, and somewhere down here I've got His Hero Is Gone as well. Here it is. Yeah, there you go. Which are both great records, incidentally.
15 Counts is a great record.
15 Counts of Arson. Yeah, which is another, because that's what's sat next to Hey Colossus.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
That's not a bad place to be, I would have said.
No.
But so there's so that's how I do it. But I mean, I think it's such a people get really crazy about it though. Like I say, because of the sort of slightly obsessive nature of record collecting, a lot of people get really like upset almost that you do that, or upset that you wouldn't file it by genre, or upset that you would file it by genre.
Well, if it's your own thing, then it's fine. Like you can put Sex Pistols in rock. Or
yeah.
But for me, one of my pet hates in record shops is I'll bring this up with you so you can raise it with the top man. Is I don't like the world music section.
Nobody does. I mean, we've even got a thing in in Flashback where there's almost like a tacit apology really on for the fact that the world music section even exists. Because we know it's crap, and we know that it's insulting in a lot of ways.
Because, like one of the biggest rock bands going at the minute or whatever, say for example Songhoi Blues, who are great, but they shouldn't be in. Do you know what I mean? Like it seems wrong.
I do think we need to move past the whole expression world music really, and if anybody ever says world music influences or anything like that, I do kind of cringe openly a bit now. I think we all kind of slowly get to the point where that's going to become redundant I'm sure it's something that you've come up with quite a few times when you've been doing these chats, but like genre in general is just such a thorny issue, and it's so much of it's kind of generally quite unhelpful a lot of the time, as a way of understanding music or compartmentalizing music. It's something that a lot of people impose on music in a way to try and make sense of a chaotic world, but it often causes as many problems as it starts, as it solves rather.
No, I agree. Like I'm gonna show a metal album that I know you like.
Yeah.
And they were lumped in with thrash metal.
Right.
But I don't think, especially this album is, and it always made me feel a bit weird that it was like connected with like Exodus or something. Say Exodus is what you'd call thrash metal. But like this,
I would say, Dimension Atros, one of my favorite albums of all time, in fact.
Yeah, and I know that, but which is why I sort of thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
No, it's a very good example. They were a band who completely transcended genre. They weren't even really a metal band in a lot of ways. They were fuck knows what. Yeah. They were like, strange. Yeah, what does it say? More psychedelic than ever. Nuclear metal warriors. Well, that's better. If you're going to call them nuclear metal. Because that's like a genre that doesn't exist apart from Voivod, which is where Voivod should be. And that's why Voivod have got the incredible emotional pull that they have over people like me, because they're on my like top 5 bands of all time, Voivod. Mainly because they are totally, absolutely unique. There's nobody else like him. It's the result of growing up in total isolation, living in like sort of in Canada in the middle of nowhere with a massive nuclear power station, or in heavy industry right next door. Living in the 80s in the constant threat of nuclear annihilation, like being really into Van de Graaff generator and really into discharge both at the time, and being like, fuck it, let's just do all of it all at once. There are no rules. And I think that the anarchic quality of Voivod is what's exciting about them. And as you say, calling it a thrash metal album is extremely reductive in light of all of that.
That's what it was at the time, right? Because like I was metal. I was a metal person. This came out when it came out late 80s, I guess. Can't see the year on the back, but I'm going to guess late 80s.
88 it was. It was when I discovered Voivod, when that album was out as well.
Yeah, same. And I have a feeling we probably discovered them the same way, and I've got a feeling it was a Kerrang video.
It was, yeah. That was it. Kerrang video compilation 3 with Pandora Peroxide on the front. Yeah, and it was all stuff like Iron Maiden, Whitesnake, Vixen, Tiger Tails, Magnum were all on there. And right in the middle of it, you had Voivod. And I'll be honest, when I first watched that video, obviously the rest of it made sense, but that Voivod thing was like it'd been beamed in from another planet. Yeah. So I just couldn't understand it at all. Also, it was really grimy and low budget, and sort of sci-fi video they did for it. So I was like quite spooked by it, if I'm honest, and kind of didn't really get it. And then literally every single time I watched that video, that Voivod track went up and up to the point where that was the only track I really liked on there anymore, or the only track that felt real somehow, the only track that had a real kind of pull for me. Even the Iron Maiden video on there looked like a standard arena rock video, which didn't really connect with me in any way. It just looked really glossy and kind of meaningless, Anthrax, I'm the Man on this, which is probably the most dated artifact of that entire period, is I'm the Man by Anthrax. Like nobody enjoys hearing that song in 2021.
Like when I got that video, and the same. That song just kept hooking me back, even though I didn't understand it, or maybe I might not have even liked it particularly, but something kept dragging me back. So I was like, I'm going to get the album. And at the time, it was my paper round money. So my paper round money went on it, and it was the only record I bought for a month or whatever. So I made sure I liked it, and then after a month,
that's kind of like a. That is kind of like a talking point that people of our sort of vintage tend to talk about quite a bit, is the fact that you did used to persevere with records a lot more in those days if you'd blown a load of cash on them. And we all made mistakes and bought crap records and stuff like that, but you would give them a fair hearing. And Voivod are the kind of band you do need, as you say, when you first hear them, it just sounds like a racket and you're not sure what to make of it and stuff. But then, often it is the stuff that takes a while to grow on you that ends up being the most enduring, And it's just that track, Tribal Convictions in particular, that was on the Kerrang video. I think like the last kind of 2 minutes of that is still right up there with my favorite music that's ever been recorded by anybody. It's just the actual emotional pull that music's got on me is just completely unparalleled. Yeah. More than any other.
And I think they're still an interesting band.
They're amazing, and they're still. I still go and see them every time they play London, and they always kick ass, and they always look like they're loving it. More importantly, they absolutely love it. And they're just and they've never. The weird thing is, they still confuse people. They still struggle to get an audience in the metal world. They're very well regarded, but they still struggle to sell out the underworld. If they headline it. I remember, they played Bloodstock, and it was like Evil Scarecrow, the comedy metal band, were on the other stage. People were watching Evil Scarecrow than watching Voivod. And it's like, where's the justice in that? Where where these people, I don't know. I start puffing and sounding like a grumpy old man, but people shouldn't be forced to like Voivod, but it's just it's being a prophet without honor, isn't it? A band doesn't fit in anywhere.
Yeah, well, I know that. So, are you wanting to head off and speak with Teeth of the Sea about stuff?
No, I can carry on cracking on for a bit. Did you want to talk about Supernormal and stuff? I gather you've been chatting about Supernormal on.
I wouldn't mind bringing it up. I just want to talk about one more record, because I want to talk about what Teeth.
Yeah.
So this is another soundtrack album, but Teeth of the Sea did their own version of this as well.
Oh yeah.
I believe, unless I'm wrong. This is
Field in England. Yeah.
So this is a Field in England soundtrack.
Yeah.
The film. It's a double album. It's really nice. It's got a sweet picture of the guys. There's another photo another picture of Teeth of the Sea there.
Well, it's another image that we aspire to, which we haven't quite managed to buff yet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because we haven't got the hair or the clothes for it, unfortunately.
So this is the soundtrack of that film, like the official soundtrack of that film. Talk talk to me about what Teeth of the Sea did.
Well, we just got a commission to go to Cork. It's the only time, still to this day, the only time I've ever been to Ireland. We got this commission to go play in the Cork Film Festival and do a sort of our own interpretation of it, essentially. So, like, the idea being that we would kind of re-edit the movie and into the. We're very lucky having Mike in the band, who's very good at like video editing, and he's he was he basically sort of calibrated some scenes from the movie into about 45 minutes worth of imagery, and then we wrote like. We had access to all the stems from the soundtrack. Basically, Jim Williams, who actually wrote the soundtrack, was really helpful. He's a super cool guy. Him and Andy Stark actually came out to the film festival and hung out with us and went and saw the performance as well.
Yeah.
And Andy Stark was the producer of Field in England.
Yeah.
And Jim Williams is super cool about it. And we just basically, we had quite a short amount of time to do it. I think we put the whole thing together in about a month, to be honest. Like, really, it was quite intense. Just finished doing a big tour with Esben and the Witch and Thought Forms for the master record. And we basically had to go straight into just like practicing like 3 to 4 nights a week, just trying to hammer this into shape and stuff. So we basically just took a few themes from the movie. One of them was the song, the Baloo My Boy, which one of the characters sings. And we turned that into a kind of sort of quite sort of beatific sort of like, but sort of quite almost like sort of jazz influenced sort of piece. I mean, I was trying to look at sort of all sorts of, that's it there, yeah. I was trying to like go for real sort of pastoral influences on this, obviously, with the State and the Bleeding Obvious. So it was like, I was trying to channel stuff like Flying Saucer Attack and Popol Vuh and things like that.
Throw the guitar around.
No, I wasn't. I played acoustic. I only played acoustic on this, actually. It's the only thing I've done with TOTS where I only played acoustic. I sort of decided to do that.
Right.
And we did that, and then we did a version of the Black Mass track that plays during the freak out hallucination scene as well, called Chernobyl. We did a version of that, which again, I can't actually remember the name of the guy from Black Mass now, but he was very, very cool about it in terms of letting us use it. And that became another piece of it. And we pieced all that together, went to Cork, pretty much got sort of plied with alcohol from pretty much the moment we stepped onto into Cork. And my memories of that weekend are a little bit hazy, to be honest, because it was just an incredibly boozy and debauched weekend. There was quite a few other people that we knew there and stuff. Like the first time I met Serafina Steer, she was there doing another piece for example, and there was quite a lot of familiar faces, and it was just we did the performance was sold out and it was a real success, and then we decided to actually release our own version of it on the back of that, and Rocket worked for putting it out. Oh, hello.
Yeah, the dog is growling. I think he's growling at the top. I don't know what it is.
He's growling at the Voivod record or something like
that. So Rocket released.
So Rocket released it for Record Store Day. Yeah, we recorded all the tunes and we put it out. And again, everybody was super cool. I mean, I have to say thanks to all the people like Andy Stark and Ben Whitley and Jim Williams, who were all like really cool about us doing this thing. And the only thing I'm worried about is people might think we actually did the soundtrack to Field in England, which we didn't. I think a few people were confused by that. I've seen online and stuff, and we didn't. It was Jim Williams, but
yeah, I can see how they would be, seeing as soundtrack album got released.
So we released it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. We've done quite a few things like that. We did a thing based on the 1984 version of 1984 with John Hurt in it and stuff like that. And we did that in CERN, where the Large Hadron Collider is, the year after in 2014. That was one of the most mental things we've ever done. Going down to there and hanging around this big scientific headquarters and being given a tour of the Large Hadron Collider and performing in this huge globe that they'd built for entertainment purposes there. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah, it was like, I mean, we never thought, when we started this band, which was very much about like, drinking Cronenberg and making a racket and, sort of keeping ourselves busy and having a laugh. And it was, we never thought we'd end up doing things like that as a result of it.
No,
so it completely ripped our head off.
Yeah, it's totally awesome. It's brilliant. Yeah,
I mean, it's insane. Why would they let Herberts like us into a place like that, honestly? So...
Don't ask me. No, but yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to mention Rocket. I'm just going to quickly mention Rocket, the label, because this album came out last year, and I think it's enormously underrated. Totally.
Which record's that?
Can you see it?
Pharaoh Overlord. Yeah.
Yeah. Pharaoh Overlord.
I mean, it's I can't say it.
Yeah, you froze. It's weird. Yeah.
It's a record.
Yeah.
I think it's Oh, so yeah, yeah, my internet connection went a bit sketch there. Am I back now? Am I back in the room?
You're back in the
coin a
room.
phrase. Yeah, no, it's an amazing record. I don't know if is it underrated. I mean, I think it's one of these things where everybody seems to like it, so I'm a bit much beyond that. But
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal, that record. Just the kind of the sort of the strange sort of like glacial synth pop vibe with the sort of dystopian apocalyptic vocal performance and the sort of like the skinny. I'm a big fan of Skinny Puppy as well, and some of it reminds me of that, and it's got that kind of very tuneful but very sort of like harsh and dystopian kind of vibe to it as well.
Yeah, it's really stuck with me.
It's really kind of got a big emotional heft to it, I think, as well. It never sounds like they're taking the piss. I mean, a lot of people kind of maybe struggle to get their head around it because it's quite a strange sound, a strange combination of styles. But I think it really kind of packs a punch, like, you know, emotionally and stuff as well.
So
if you talk to Aaron Tinner about it, a lot of it's about, like, you know, serious stuff he was going on in his life to do with the pandemic and things like that, you know. So
it's on Rocket, which is now, that's a very blurry logo, which has released all of Teeth of the Sea's albums, correct?
They have, yeah. We've been with them since 2000. And I think I first met Chris in 2006. First gave him a demo CD. I mean, it was basically just like drunk at a Heads gig, and I gave the DJ a copy of our one-track demo, and it happened to be Chris Reader. And then he actually messaged us on MySpace, because that was how you did it in those days, and said, "Oh, I really like that CD he gave me." I was like, "Bloody hell, who are you?" And then we sort of stayed in touch from that point onwards, and we ended up doing all our records on Rocket, you know.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, good label, nice people. Having
absolutely
dealt with them,
you know,
times, nice people, and still releasing really good things. And they've been going now for over 20 years.
I think, you know, I mean, you know, always kind of seem to look for something a bit different to what else is going on. You know, they're not content to rest on their laurels. They're always looking for something a bit that's pushing things forward a little bit. And, you know, I really respect them for that, you know.
Yeah, fair play. I think we should probably call it a night. Unless
maybe so.
Unless you have anything else you want to talk about or mention or show.
No, that's fine. I think I'm sure people do. Anything else I'd like to talk about? What was that? Sorry.
If there's anything else you want to show or talk about, then do.
No. I mean, you mentioned about Supernormal, but I think it's probably better, given that I'm one of the organisers. It's probably better for the people to talk about Supernormal rather than me. I think, really.
Okay.
I could look a bit self-congratulatory.
I forgot that. So,
no, I think so.
So Jimmy also is one of the head honchos at Supernormal Festival. I don't know how many.
I mean, I wouldn't use that phrase, but yeah.
And well, no, I'm guessing that there's many joint head honchos, and I don't.
There's a lot of all head honchos.
Exactly, it's a team of head honchos, and I don't know how many, but Jimmy's one of them. And the last few episodes, Supernormal's come up a lot because a lot of people just love the festival and I've missed it the last 2 years. And just love it. I've been speaking to Ralph Bassclef and Barney from Lower Slaughter and a few others have all been really positive, and they've started picking their top 5 appearances or shows that have happened at Supernormal Festival. And I'm going to push Mr. Jimmy Martin to give me his top 5, not top 6. Not top...
No, 5's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's really flattering that people can actually just name 5 off the top of their head and they can actually do that, and that's great, you know. I mean, you know, Supernormal is another thing where I don't think I wasn't even directly involved to start with. I was kind of slightly on the periphery for various reasons that we probably haven't got time to go into. And like the fact that it's evolved into what it is now is kind of mind-blowing, really. But yeah, I mean, I did grab a bunch of records. I mean, the first one's got to be Faust, which that was the first... very first Supernormal was headlined by Faust. Wow. And on the Saturday, and that was it was amazing for a variety of reasons, really. It was great that they absolutely got it as soon as they got there. Like the Faust lads were totally into the festival, understood where it was coming from, didn't care at all about the fact that it maybe looked a little bit shambolic and we didn't exactly know what we were doing at all at that point. You know, they were just completely on board. You know, John Hervey was like angle grinding away, you know, in the middle of all of it. And their set was absolutely mind-boggling on the Saturday night, you know. And at one point, you know, he had his chainsaw and he was actually sawing holes in the stage up above there. At one point, it was absolutely amazing. So you have to name Faust, really. It's one of the bands, one of the big bands. I'm trying to think who else I was going to say. MDC is another one. I mean, MDC, that was kind of great as well because I think these lads, you know, they kind of. It was amazing to get to play them. It was a real stroke of luck that we managed to book them because it just happened to be on tour at that point. But they absolutely got it as well as soon as they got there. You know, but they were kind of like people who are used to living a bohemian life, who maybe are used to playing the same kind of shows. We certainly never stayed in a place like Brazier's Park before. Apparently, so they were telling me anyway. Like some sort of country mansion like that while they were on tour, and absolutely ripped the roof off the place as well when they played. And that was like I think probably the most happy I've ever been. Watching a Supernormal set was probably when MDC were just tearing the place to pieces on a Friday night of 2016.
Yeah, that's in.
So that was
MDC's in my top 5. I didn't see Faust, but MDC's in my top 5 for sure.
MDC was great. Another one which was like probably the set didn't. I mean, the set was a little bit more mixed because we had to. Seafield played it in 2012, and there was a band I've been mega into, and a band who I think also went over a lot of people's heads at the time, and people didn't necessarily understand what was going on. You know, I remember seeing them play with the Cocteau Twins in 1994 and going down like a sack of shit, you know, because people didn't really understand what they were doing. And it was entirely Colin Wakefield's doing that we booked Seafield, but that was an amazing move, you know. And I was so chuffed to get to see Seafield play the festival, you know. And again, that kind of slightly outsider's perspective, but I seemed to fit what we were doing, you know. And that felt like a really sort of poetic moment in a weird way. And I'd have to say Gutter Snipe as well. I mean, we've got this thing with Supernormal sometimes where we'll kind of put on a really obnoxious band first thing on a Saturday morning, just to kind of clear away people's hangovers. And we've put Gutter Snipe once, and that was like,
I was there.
Just in terms of the chef, you were there, you saw that. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the impact that they had on the audience and how completely, you know, maybe it was like the Voivod factor again. It was so completely impossible to find coordinates for anybody really, including myself, you know. Yeah. So that was a special moment. That's the kind of thing. Gutter Snipe an inspiring band to me, really, because they're just a band who are just completely not operating by anybody else's rules, you know, which is what you kind of want to see more of. And it's really difficult to fathom what they're doing, you know. Yeah. So that was a special one. And I'd have to say Nod as well, because Nod were like a really special band. They've been back numerous times. Rex has done the sound on the main stage pretty much every year, at least since 2011, and they've been a kind of a totemic band. Really, you know, Paddy's always been helping out. The set they did right before Faust on in 2010 was also like a really legendary moment. It was one of the points where the festival became the thing it was, really. I think, you know, just the hedonistic vibe that came off from the stage while they were playing, and the sort of the intensity of that performance really felt like a really kind of. I mean, I remember standing on top of the hill, looking down on the stage where the shed stage was, Supernormal, and it was almost like some sort of aliens had landed at the bottom of the hill, and we're just pulsating this bizarre sound out, and everybody was gathered around. It was like one of these real magic moments. So I'd have to say them. I think that's 5. Is that 5? That was there anyway.
Nod, Faust, MD
Seafield. Is there one more? Cindy Talk. I'd say another one. Cindy Talk were another one who were an unknown quantity to me. And I've not got a Cindy Talk record, but I have got this record by this Mortal Coil, which has got Cinder Sings a couple of tunes on. And I don't think a lot of people know that about Cinder. She's got this really crazy storied history, not just being on 4AD records, but she was actually one of the original choice to be the singer in Duran Duran at one point. Well, that sounded up, but it's actually true. When she was in a band called The Freeze in the late 70s, she was like, got the attention of John Taylor and Nick Rhodes, and they wanted her in the band, but she didn't want to do it. So Cindy Talk, both times they played, they've just absolutely blown me away. And it was the same thing as well, really, where I just couldn't compartmentalize it as well. There was just extreme amounts of sort of emotion and intensity coming off the stage. And it was like, I think it was mostly an improvisatory setup, but just the sheer like force of the performance was just like, that's kind of what Supernormal was all about for me, really. It was just stuff
I don't know that band. I don't know Cindy Talk.
Yeah, amazing stuff. It's kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it, like experimental electronic music, I guess, really. But Cinder's got like this amazing sort of torch song kind of voice. Like, I guess you could maybe compare it to Scott Walker or something like that, or, you know, I'm not sure what else, Nina Simone, probably big influences. So yeah, amazing. So Cindy Talk could be another one. Cool. I think another massively underrated artist.
Right. Yeah. So, what year are we? So next year. So next year it's going to happen.
Yeah, next year. Come hell or high water, it's happening next year.
Okay, let's call it a night. Been
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute delight, Joe. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for giving over half of your evening. Say hello.
So I've been terribly disorganised, but there you go.
Say hello to the Teeth of the Sea people when you speak to
them. Certainly will. Yeah, I certainly shall.
And so let's wave goodbye.
Whilst we're waving.
Stop it whilst we're waving. Hold on. Bye-bye.